But I think you're going to hear a lot of information about what's going on in the environment through the plastic bags. But I think the most important thing, the village is going to talk about the things that they're considering to do legislative-wide. But the main thing is what we do when we leave this room today. When we all go out and go home, let's remember to go home, and then when you go home, get those shopping bags that you have, those reusable shopping bags, put them in your car, and use those when you go shopping. It's really going to take us to do it, to really make this effective. And that's really the message I hope everybody walks away when they leave here today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Mayor, Jack Krieger, for a few introductions. Jack is helping us here, host it here in the Patchogue Theater, so we thank Jack for that. So let's hear for our Deputy Mayor, Jack Krieger.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I've seen Joe Keyes work on this project for quite a while, and he's gaining support throughout the village, and it's all his hard work, and he's really been the one on the village board to shepherd this thing and carry the water on it. I'd like to welcome you to the theater. This theater was built in 1923, and we recycled it into this theater. So it's our work for the environment here in Patchogue. And again, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming. And I live next to a wooded area. It's behind my house, and I see these bags up in the trees on a regular basis. They're flapping around, and they're too high to get, and they stay there for the longest period of time. And it's a blight on our community, and it's filling up landfills, and it's not doing this earth any good. So I appreciate everything that you people are doing here tonight, and Mayor Pontieri, who couldn't be here tonight, also sends his regards and thanks everybody for coming. So thank you, and I'd like to introduce our village trustee, Joe Keyes.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. If, by the way, we say anything tonight that displeases you, upsets you, feel free to take your complaints right to Jack Krieger. He handles it very well. He'll be more than happy to solve them for you. But I want to thank everybody, obviously, for coming out on such a cold and blustery night. Apparently, old man Winter's not really ready to throw in the towel. He's still got last fight is still in him. But I do appreciate you coming out. I'm actually kind of glad, actually, that it's one of these blustery, windy nights, because it just reminds us of something that the super ecologist Bob Dylan wrote many years ago. Bob not only wrote, obviously, protest songs, but he wrote many songs that were environmentally supportive. You all remember that Bob wrote that, "Plastics, my friend, are blowing in the wind." Yeah, my wife told me don't try any corny jokes.
We love you.
And I did it anyway. At any rate, I'd like to thank all our guest speakers for taking the time out of their busy schedules to prepare for what I'm sure will prove to be some interesting and thoughtful presentations. Heads up, shout out to Joe Dean in the back, Superintendent DPW, who's in charge of setting all this up for us tonight. I appreciate that, Joe. I am, as Jack said, Joe Keyes. I'm probably largely responsible for starting all this and getting you all out here tonight. So I'll wear the protective gear if I have to before the night's over. I'll take the blame. This all actually started about 2 years ago when I picked up some a takeout for a restaurant right here in town. Which, by the way, we have many fine restaurants here in town, so anytime you come to the theater, don't make this your last trip to the theater. Come visit our restaurants, have a drink, have some dinner, and then come here and enjoy the show. I just want to throw in a little plug for the theater. So, the theater's doing their part. They actually switched over to LED lighting not long ago, so it's been saving on electricity, and they're thinking green as well. But anyway, it started, as I said, about 2 years ago. I brought some takeout home from one of our restaurants, and I looked at the package for a while, and the contents of the package weren't going to last long, but the packaging itself, the styrofoam and the plastic, was going to be around for a long, long time. The problem was I didn't quite know what to do about that, so I just kind of kept it in the back of my head for a while. And then in October of 2014, I happened to see an article in the Newsday that said that the town of Southampton and East Hampton had just passed legislation banning the use of the single-use bag. And I learned from that article that actually the village of Southampton had done the same thing 2 years prior to that. So stirred up a little interest again. I mentioned it to some of my fellow board members who were certainly, all for it. They're on board, they're supportive of it, and they said, yeah, do what you have to do. I did reach out to the village of Southampton. I don't know if any Southampton community members are here tonight, but a few said they were going to try to make it. But their village administrator, Stephen Funch, Roger Blau, who heads their SAVE committee, very supportive, very helpful in kind of telling me how to get this off the ground. There's also a committee, I believe, headquartered out of East Patchogue, BYOB. Nancy Arthur, I don't know if she's here, she volunteers as a Plaza Theater. Another venue for you to go, by the way, the Plaza Theater, right around the block. And they were supportive as well, and very instrumental in giving us some ideas. I then, from there, formed what we call our PEP committee. It's Protecting the Environment in Patchogue. We like to say that we don't hold meetings, rather we have PEP rallies. And this probably would give me a good time to introduce members, and hope I don't leave anybody out. Chaired by Patty Seal. It's a committee that's made up of village residents and employees. Adrienne Esposito, not only a village resident, but just happens to be the executive director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment. Emily Gotti, who works in our treasurer's office and has been, would be very helpful in maybe steering you into some materials that you may want to use once you can't use plastic bags anymore. Emily's been doing a lot of research on that and using them in our own house as well. Dave Reese is back there, another member. Don Walksmith, and I think I mentioned Joe Dean and myself, and Kirk Lawrence, associate professor at St. Joe's College, who volunteered to come on board and get his students involved as well. They've done some pretty interesting work for us. And Dave Kennedy. Dave Kennedy's involved in everything, so we just include him there. That's it. We've met several times, the committee's met several times. We've learned a lot. I believe we have a lot to offer. If we do get to the point of instituting the single-use ban, I know some people are concerned about this. The committee will be around to assist with the transition. We're not going anywhere. I expect that if it is passed, our plan, our hope is to have an April 27th public hearing, by the way, which that's when the ban will take effect. There'll be a 6-month transition period, so actually November 1st is when it really kicks in. But in that 6-month transition period, we know that's when our work starts. It's our job to try to get this right. So any questions or concerns that residents, citizens, merchants are going to have, any issues, and I'm sure they will, because we're coming across them ourselves as we do some of the research. That's what the committee's for. I also realize that it's a small village. The immediate impact may not be too great, The goal here is to make a statement. They did it on the east end of the island, Southampton. We're kind of the center of the island. We have been a hub of activity over the last several years, particularly since Mayor Krieger took office. His administration, I think anybody who knows the area at all has seen what's happened, to the village, to Main Street over the last 8 to 10 years. But I know that whatever statement we make, what we're hoping will happen, goes to other villages, other neighbors in Bellport, and maybe up in Port Jeff. Some of these guys pick up the ball and say, well, if they did it there, maybe we could get it going as well. Ideally to the town, to the county, and but as I said, I know in a little tiny village, the immediate impact may not be that much, but if we're committed to it, it will make a difference right here. We're still working on the language for the proposed legislation. As I said, we want to make this meaningful, but we also want to make it as painless as possible. We know there's some concerns with some of the merchants. This is all new to everybody. The older we get, the less apt we are to adjust to change, get to kind of be dinosaurs, and we have to work on that a little bit. So the older, some of us get, certainly not any of the ladies in the room, but some of the older guys. We're hoping to, we will be here as a Q&A period at the end, a Q&A session at the end, question and answer. So we're hoping that we'll be able to answer whatever questions you may have. Please try to hold all your questions until the end, because maybe one of the speakers will answer it before you get to it. If you think of something, jot it down, and we're all going to stick around for a while, and feel free to present your comments and questions to us. So I believe that's what brings us to tonight. Again, I appreciate everybody for coming out, for your time, for the efforts everybody's making, and I'll turn it back over to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right, the first on our program, we're going to have a presentation from Adrienne Esposito from Citizens Campaign for the Environment. And I know Joe mentioned it before, but I want to emphasize that she's also, oh, I apologize. I'm looking, you know what, I went to 7:15 before I got to finish 7. I apologize. Before we get to Adrienne Esposito, we have our PEP committee chairperson who's put together some top 10 facts about plastics in our ocean. So let's hear from Patty Seal.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks again for coming, and thanks for the committee for all their hard work in the last couple of months. I guess I have a little bit of a David Letterman type of top 10. So we'll start with number 10 on the top 10 facts about plastic bags in our oceans. Nearly 100 cities, towns, and counties across the U.S. have banned plastic bags, half of them in this past year. Number 9, retail businesses spend more than $4 billion per year to provide plastic bags. If I could just veer for that for a second, we do have a little market here in the village who came to one of our meetings, and the question we asked him was how many plastic bags he uses in a month. I think every person on the committee was flabbergasted. 40,000 a month in a little market here on South Ocean Avenue. So the impact is much greater than we probably even realize. Number 8, 80% of the marine debris comes from land-based waste, and the most direct route to the Great Atlantic Garbage Patch is from the east coast of the U.S. Shame on us. 85% of all sea turtles will be injured or killed by plastics in their lifetimes, including the endangered leatherback turtles that summer in Massachusetts Bay before migrating to the tropics to mate. Number 6, in the middle of the Atlantic, there is an area that spans the distance between Virginia to Cuba called the Great Atlantic Garbage Patch, a soup of plastic with up to 26 million plastic particles per square kilometer. Number 5, marine wildlife often mistake plastic bags for food, especially sea turtles hunting jellyfish. In fact, high amounts of plastic material, especially plastic bags, have been found blocking the breathing passages and stomachs of many marine species, including whales, dolphins, seals, puffins, and turtles. Number 4, in the ocean, plastics break down into a small plankton-sized particles that can outnumber plankton 6 to 1. These pieces collect toxins like PCBs and DDT at levels of up to 1 million times the level found in seawater. Number 3, during the 2011 International Coastal Cleanup volunteers collected 120,450 pounds of bags in the United States. In Massachusetts alone, Clean Sweep volunteers collected 5,712 pounds of plastic bags, one of the most common forms of litter found. Number 2, plastic bags are used for an average of 12 minutes, but a single plastic bag has a life expectancy of up to 1,000 years. Americans use more than 1 billion plastic bags each year, more than 300 bags per person per year. There you have it. Thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to David.
Thank you, Patty. Now, as I was saying before, we're going to have a presentation now from Citizens Campaign for the Environment. I know Joe Keyes mentioned before that we're lucky enough to have somebody who's probably recognized as one of the top 5 environmental leaders in all of the Northeast, living right here in the village of Patchogue, and that's Adrienne Esposito. So she's going to do a little why bring your own bag discussion. Thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you. All right, with that kind of introduction, there's no pressure at all. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so very, very much for coming. I'm just going to disagree with one thing my esteemed colleague, Joe Keyes, said. He said that Patchogue's doing it to make a statement, but I think Patchogue is also doing it to make a difference, because this would be the largest village in New York State to ban plastic bags when we get this done. That's more than a statement that has meaning. Why is that? Well, let's look at what we like to call the situation analysis. Jordan, that's your cue.
You have a clicker.
Oh, I have a clicker.
It's our first rodeo, folks.
I know, I'm so used to,
Narrow on the right.
okay. As you can see, I am the technologically
Technical
sophisticated
difficulties.
one in my organization. Rob Giovani, who rescues whales for a living, is helping with the technology. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Now I feel like the helpless woman. This is not going well.
I feel better than I helped you.
Yes, I do too. Okay, so why are plastics a problem? Well, since the 1950s, we've had a plastics boom. Remember the old movie, you know, when Dustin Hoffman was told, "I got one word for you, son, and it's plastics"? Damn if he wasn't right, okay? Since the 1950s, America and globally, we've began a love affair with plastics. We have plastic bottles, plastic containers, plastic bags, plastic everything. We love plastic, but plastic doesn't go away. Apparently, it loves us too. So the statistics are right now that we are literally suffering under 50 years worth of plastic. As Patty said, it lasts at least 1,000 years, but it just keeps breaking down into smaller and smaller particles. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away into those, you know, carbon-based materials that literally blend back into our environment. I can't see, did it turn?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So, some people say to me, well, you know, Adrienne, of all the things we got going on, we have toxic waste, we have groundwater problems, we have toxic tides. Why are you working on plastic bags? So I'm glad you asked, because I will tell you. Plastic bags have a lot of hidden impacts. So for instance, 2.2 billion pounds of fossil fuels are needed to produce the 100 billion plastic bags that the U.S. consumes every year. Also, 3.9 billion gallons of fresh water are needed every year to supply us with plastic bags. The manufacturing of these bags also produces 2.7 billion tons of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. That's just in America. Those are some very real statistics. Paper bags, not too much better, my friends. Paper bags, in order to supply the amount that we use every year, which is the 100 billion, we actually have to cut down 14 million trees. Now you have 14 million trees not absorbing carbon dioxide and not emitting oxygen any longer. So when we shop, we're actually making a difference, for better or for worse, when we take that bag, in our global ecology and in our Earth's sustainability. We will have wildlife experts very shortly come up and speak, and I want you to know that both of these experts are globally recognized in their field. Dr. Swanson, a marine scientist from Stony Brook, and also Rob Giovani, who's also apparently a technician who actually does rescue whales for a living. We'll talk more about the wildlife, but we just wanted you to know that plastic pollution impacts 267 species of marine animals. That's a lot. That's the number of species. That's not the number that are actually adversely impacted or killed. And obviously, as you can see, globally now, there's more plastics in our ocean than plankton. This is not the way Mother Nature intended it. 46,000 pieces of plastic in every square mile of the ocean. Again, shame on us. All right. Plastic bags are not free. We do these presentations all over, and people say to me, but you know, why are you taking away the free bag? You know, because nothing's free anymore, and people feel like, look, I get a plastic bag free, I'll take it. But they're not free. That's deceptive. As Patty mentioned earlier, the local grocery store here uses 40,000 plastic bags per month. Plastic bags cost, on average, 2 cents each. 2 cents times 40,000 is $800. $800 a month, 12 months on the year, do the math with me, about, we're gonna round up, $10,000 per year. It's in the cost of the groceries. It's not free, it's a cost in the groceries. So, and then there are other costs. So for instance, when we see them, come on, work with me here. How many have seen them dangling from trees? Who hasn't? Thank you. How does Sunrise Harbor look these days? Good, huh? When snow melts, plastic bags are set free. All right, and they like to travel very far. and they're all over. And, somebody called me and said, people actually were sending me emails of where they saw plastic bags when they read about the forum in the newspaper, and they wanted me to go take pictures so I could show them tonight. But I feel like if you've seen one plastic bag, you've seen them all. So I declined to do that. So there are many plastic bags dangling on trees and in bushes and on beaches, and it costs us money to pick that litter up. Our tax dollars go to pay to retrieve them and to clean them out of storm drains. Joe, who is the director of the DPW here, can tell you he takes them out of storm drains. And when they get in there, they cause localized flooding. In fact, there was one big news story not that long ago that in Bangladesh, which recently flooded in a very severe storm in 1998, they found that 2/3 of the nation flooded, not really because of the rain, but because all the storm systems were clogged, plastic bags. And that caused Bangladesh to ban the bag. Also, you may not know Brookhaven Town. We here on this town, we have a beautiful, scenic Mount Trashmore. If you have not taken the trip, you really should. I highly recommend it. But we are required, the town is, by the permit for the landfill to ensure that the garbage is not flying around the neighborhood, which means extra people are on staff to pick up the garbage. And that costs money. So all of those are simply examples for you about how the plastic bag is not free. Did it switch? No. I do not like this system. All right. Dangers to wildlife. Again, we're not going to talk about this because we have experts here. We just wanted you to see that picture. That was Jordan. She's a little bit gory that way. Again, like Patty said, plastic bags don't die, but they go to the ocean where they live a life of peace and tranquility because they stay there forever. And then they gather with all their other plastic friends in little islands that are not so little, which maybe Larry's going to talk about. Is this on your list, Larry? Yes.
Whatever.
You can talk about the plastic islands. But we have two gigantic plastic islands. One is the size of Texas. And the island is actually in some spaces, in some depths, 100 feet deep. And they don't even know how to clean it up. And this is where the currents meet in the Pacific Ocean. So it doesn't go away. It may go away from where we live, but it's out in the ocean, getting into the food system and getting into the ecosystem. So, what's been done about this? Well, according to the EPA, and again, I know these numbers are crazy, but yet they're real, and this is why this is a real problem. 500 billion plastic bags are up to a trillion, between 500 billion and a trillion, it's even hard to say the numbers, see, are used every year globally. That's a lot of bags. The average American family uses about 1,500 plastic bags per year. That's why bringing your own bag makes a difference. America, and we already said this, but will be the last time we say it, we use 100 billion plastic bags per year in America, and every hour in America, 200,000 plastic bags go to a landfill, where again, they live forever. Some people say to me, well, plastic bags, can't we use the biodegradable ones? And biodegradable ones, just so you know, is a little bit of a myth. Actually, it's a lot of a myth. Actually, it's complete BS. Because, I don't know why I'm sugarcoating it. You need sunlight, and you need certain temperature, and you need certain conditions in order for them to stop breaking down. And that doesn't exist in a landfill, and it definitely doesn't exist in the ocean or the estuaries or the marine environment. So, what are we going to do? Well, that's why we're here. We're going to fix the problem, all right? We're going to do what many other areas have done. We're either going to put a ban on them, or we got to charge a fee. Patchogue has decided to put a ban on it. When we ban on it, or when we use less plastic bags, we do all sorts of great things for the environment, right? We cut down on emissions, we stop using that billions of gallons of water that we talked about, and we save our open spaces and our parks and our beaches. We prevent wildlife from dying. All these good things come of it. How are we going to do that? Okay, glad you asked. Now, look at these numbers. This was a coastal cleanup that occurred, and in 2008, and what they do when they do these beach cleanups is they do all the data. They take all the things that were cleaned up and they separate it and they actually do statistics. And it turns out in the US overall, I'm gonna round up a little bit, there's about 230,000 plastic bags that were collected in the US during the Coastal Beach Cleanup Week in 2008. New York alone, we had 22,424 plastic bags. State of Connecticut, 5,187, but the country of Ireland, you ready? 67. Joe's back there going like this. Yes, Joe, it's the Irish. It's St. Patty's Week, and we're giving them cadeaux. Why is that? Because Ireland has put a fee, and they've escalated it on plastic bags. And you know, we are a species that doesn't like to spend money on some things. And that's a good thing. And people in Ireland said, I'm not buying the blankety blank plastic bag. I'm bringing my own bag. And what did they do? They reduced plastic bag consumption by 90%. 90%. And that's how they only had 67 show up in their waste stream. So there was a dramatic reduction. People responded. But it doesn't stop there. There is lots and lots of examples around New York, around America, and also around our nation about what countries are now doing. Patchogue is leading the way for the villages, and we need for all the other ones to follow suit. Because in New York, for instance, in Connecticut, Westport, Connecticut was the first village, actually this side of the Mississippi, to ban plastic bags. And we worked on that. Our organization works in Connecticut also, and I was over there for a lot of meetings. And they were really nervous. They were like, well, people still shop here, we're Westport, Connecticut. It's kind of a wealthy community, very walkable. It's really quaint and cute. And then they just decided, we're gonna do it. We're gonna lead the way. And they banned the bags in 2008. And people were like, okay. There wasn't even a ripple effect. People just figured, okay, I have to bring my own bag, or I won't take a bag, or whatever it was. It was like a light switch went on and off, and nothing happened. In Washington, D.C., they got a little wimpy. We're not going to ban it. What we're going to do is we're going to charge a nickel. We're going to charge a nickel fee. So this is kind of funny, because Washington, D.C., I think is kind of equivalent to many areas in New York, very large, population base, very diverse. And they said, okay, we're going to charge a fee, and when we charge the fee, we're actually going to collect the nickel, and we're going to put it towards this project on the Potomac River. And then they decided that that's what they were going to do, and they predicted how much money they were going to raise for this restoration of the river. So they put the fee into place. Immediately, in the first year, 80 to 85% of people stopped buying the bags and just brought their own bag. And so that's good, because they wanted to change public behavior, but they didn't have nearly as much money that they thought they were going to have for restoration of the river. So they had to abandon the river project, but the good news is it had a dramatic effect on changing public behavior. So we just put all these other ones up so you just know we're not in this alone. There are many villages in New York State that have already done it. East Hampton, Southampton, Mamaroneck, Larchmont, Hastings-on-the-Hudson, City of Rye, and other ones. And then the ones that have charged the fee are DC and, I gotta flip. And other small places like, Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, Denmark, India, Taiwan, Wales, Toronto, and South Africa. Some of those countries are not known for their blazing environmental pathways, okay? So look at the banned section. Australia, Amsterdam, Bangladesh, okay? Cameroon, I want Chile, France. Isn't China on the list for ban? We didn't list it.
But it's banned.
But it is banned.
Rest assured.
It's banned in China. We've got to list it. China banned the plastic bag, is my point. China, you can go and visit, and on many days you actually have to wear a mask because you can't breathe the air, it's so polluted. But you know what happened? They were preparing for the Olympics, and they looked around, they called it white garbage. and they decided there was too much white garbage around China, that they needed to do something about it, and that caused them to ban the bag. Now, they didn't have an open process, they just said the ban is bagged, and of course nobody talked back, but we're not doing that here. I mean, I'm not comparing Patchogue to China. Right? If you remember the press, do not take that away. A theme tonight, that was not it. I'm just giving that as an example that even China saw it as a problem. And again, they are not known for their forward-thinking environmental policies. In fact, I think that's the only one they have. Really do. Okay. Now, last thing I'm going to say. We will have, at the hearing, we predict, the pro-plastic bag folks. They want to save the plastic bag. And I'm sorry if anybody doesn't agree with this, and I'm not really making fun of them, but I actually am. As if it's an endangered species. It is not an endangered species. I'm going to take this guy with me wherever I go. It's the chemical industry. What's the name of them, Jordan?
Food Industry Alliance?
Oh, it's called the Food Industry Alliance. And they're funded by the chemical industry. And it's their mission to stop these bans whenever they occur across America. And we've met them at every place that we've had a hearing, whether it was East Hampton, Southampton, Mamaroneck, Hastings-on-the-Hudson, Larchmont. We've been there, they've been there. And we know it's them because they have on their $900 suits. And they get up and present a compelling, compassionate case for the plastic bag. This is true. And what they tell us is, we do not need to ban this bag. It is part of our social fabric in America. And what we need to do is recycle it. We need to recycle it. And this can be done. And this line worked actually back in the late 2008, 2009, and then New York State passed a law instead of banning the bag that we will recycle plastic bags. And that's why you see in all the grocery stores and the CVS's that ridiculous little thing where you're supposed to put your plastic bags. Statistics show that between 5 and 8% of plastic bags are recycled. It doesn't work. You can't put them in, for those of you who might be putting them into your regular recycling, you can't do that. I mean, you can do that, but it's not good. Because they can't go into the regular recycling machine because they get stuck and they gunk it up, and then we have to stop the machine, and then they have to go in by hand and pull it out. It can't be in a regular recycling bin. It has to have a specialized process just for that plastic bag. So it's got to go into the supermarket plastic bag recycle bin, and then they take it for a special process to recycle it. So it's not really working. It's a nice theory, but in practice, we haven't been successful. Bottom line is, we need to make a change. We learn, we grow as a society, we have to make changes. Plastic bags are a thing of the past. When you see Bangladesh leading the way, you know change is just around the corner in America. So plastic bags are the past. Bringing your own bag, that's the future. That's what we need folks to do. And yes, we do know it can be a little inconvenient. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I ran back to my car to get them in my trunk, I could go, trekking in Peru, no problem. But you need to do it. It's about just thinking, how am I going to make this work? And we bring our own, and I see it more and more folks in the supermarket with their own reusable bags. They come in every shape and size. There's a handout back there. Best Market down here sells them for 79 cents. I've had mine for like 5 years now. I don't know, they seem to never die. That's a good thing. There's canvas ones, there's all sorts of designs and shapes that you can use and that are perfectly good. So anyway, that's the bottom line here. I don't want to continue, but I also just want you to know that many stores give a rebate to you when you bring your reusable bag. So Wallbounds, if you bring 3 usable bags, they give you 2 cents per bag. King Cullen is 5 cents. Best Market is 5 cents. Sometimes the cashiers are confused. They think it's 10 cents. I don't know what that's about. Whole Foods is 10 cents. Stop and Shop is 5 cents. So those bags pay for themselves, and then you can actually net money. How many other things can you say that about? So anyway, those are the reasons to use it, but we're going to hear from some experts about not only why is it good for us, but why is it good for those species that we're supposed to be the caretakers of.
those are pretty daunting statistics. I think everybody would agree. I think everybody, you hear something like that, you want to take action. And hold on a second, I just took my agenda. I don't know who to introduce. But we have more information for you tonight, certainly. So our next presentation that we're going to have for you is by Dr. Larry Swanson, who's of the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences in Stony Brook University. And he's going to talk about the environmental impacts of the plastic pollution. Let's hear from Mr. Swanson.
Thank you. So I'm going to stand up here so I can see what I'm talking about here. It is always tough to follow Adrienne. The whole evening is going to be downhill from Adrienne's talk. It always seems like that to me. So let me start and talk about plastic bags in the context of a bigger picture, and that's the marine debris in general. I've been involved with marine debris going back to 1976 when we closed 100 miles of beaches here on the south shore of Long Island due to combined sewer overflows. And then we had a repeat of it in 1988. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. And if I can figure out how to work this.
On the side of the circle.
Pardon?
Side of the circle.
Side of the circle. There we go. So
Rob can show you.
At least I have use here.
plastic bags are part of our disposable society. And that really goes back to post-war years. This is a picture from Life magazine in the 1950s. And here you can see all sorts of utensils and so forth that were being advocated because it was going to free the housewife from washing dishes. Many of the things here were not plastic because plastic hadn't really been utilized for these functions yet. But nevertheless, this is really the beginning of it. Let's free up people so that they could do more fun things. And we never even thought about the problems that they might create. So I just want to go over this a little bit. This is the per capita increase in plastic discards in the United States for the last 30 or 40 years. And we start with 1970. Population was only about 205 million people. Today it's about 314. In 1970, we generated about 3.25 pounds per person per day of just general municipal solid waste. And today we generate about 4.4 pounds per person per day. But the thing that's very interesting here is that in 1970, in terms of pounds per person per day, we were using only about 0.08 pounds for plastics. Today that's up to about 0.55 pounds. Notice that between 2011-2012, there's been a slight drop. That may not be statistically significant, but it may also indicate that there are growing pressures to reduce plastics, not only plastic bags, but also plastic water bottles, which are equally as bad. We've seen these statistics before. 100 million plastic bags generated in the United States each year. They're made of high-density polyethylene, low-density polyethylene, and linear low-density polyethylene. And they're produced both from natural gas and from oil. Sometimes you get an argument that, oh, we don't really use oil to make plastic bags, we use natural gas, which has far less greenhouse impacts. Well, maybe this natural gas is some of the fracking natural gas that's creating problems so much around the United States. This is a statistic from a store. We heard another statistic from a store here in Patchogue, but this happens to be up in Selden. 72,000 plastic bags per week. They estimate about 4 plastic bags per person when they come in the store, and the annual cost is about $100,000 per year for that particular store. So you can just take that statistic and extrapolate it across Long Island, and you can see how many bags are floating around in the environment. The reason grocery stores and other people like plastic bags is no other reason than it's very cost effective. And so Adrienne alluded to this. Plastic bag costs 2 to 3 cents per bag, whereas an equivalent paper bag is about 6 to 8 cents per bag. But in a store, they also take up far less space. For 1,000 plastic bags, they take up 0.6 cubic feet. For paper, they take up about 5 to 9 cubic feet for 1,000 paper bags. So you can see when you're dealing with the economy, plastic bags are clearly a desirable product. So these are typical things that you see in the marine environment that have all been experienced here on our beaches in Long Island, both North Shore and South Shore. Lots of beach litter, cans, bottles, styrofoam cups, sheet plastic, paper products, and plastic bags. Sewage-related items, condoms, sanitary napkins, tampon applicators, diaper liners, grease balls. Grease balls are the grease that accumulates around the combined storm sewers and also the sewer pipes. It's a gray kind of thing, and it coats, and then you get a big flush of water that comes through for a storm or something, and it breaks off. You'll see grease balls the size of a basketball. You'll see them as small as a pinhead. Tar balls are, of course, oil related and not cooking oil related. And then we get some fecal matter. Fishing gear, not so much a problem here to my knowledge, but maybe Rob can speak a little bit more about this. But fishing gear is a particularly pervasive problem in the Pacific Ocean. And then we've been, since the late 1980s, very concerned about the medical waste that sometimes wash up on our beaches, including hypodermic needles, syringes, etc. This is why we are concerned about plastic bags and other marine debris. They are vectors for a number of things. They're vectors for disease. They're vectors for invasive species. So a plastic bag gets in the water due to the tsunami over in Japan. It grows barnacles that are typically found in Japan. They come across the Pacific Ocean. They get in the Oregon coast. And suddenly we have a bloom of species that we don't particularly want and begin to outcompete our native species. So this is the invasive species issue is, I think, a real big issue for us to be concerned about. They're navigational hazards. They clog boat intakes, water intakes. They clog propellers and can cause people to get into accidents. They can be health hazards for marine organisms, including ingestion, entanglement, and also the toxic properties of plastics. They limit light penetration. So, I'll show you a picture a little later where a whole bay seems to be covered with plastic bags. And we need the light penetration for photosynthesis. And so this can be a significant problem if there is a sufficient number of bags on the surface of the ocean. But they also tend to sometimes accumulate a material on them, organisms or dirt, oil, what have you. They sink to the bottom and they just sit there. And they take that bottom space out of productive use for clams, oysters, whatever. And then, as Adrienne mentioned, they are a source of microplastics due to ultraviolet light degradation. So now I'm going to take you through very quickly a series of pictures showing you just some of the interesting things that and devastating things that take place in the ocean with plastics. This is a hull of a boat, and this is a plastic bag that's been sucked up into the cooling water intake. This is a plastic bag 60 meters deep. Amazing. The Arctic Ocean, 2,500 meters deep. I spent a lot of time in the Arctic in the 60s and 70s, and I couldn't have imagined that we would ever see plastic bags on the bottom of the ocean, but we do now. Here's a plastic bag just floating through the ocean. Organisms get caught of it. Here we have a sea otter that's struggling with a plastic bag. Turtle that's coughed up plastic bag. This turtle, I believe, was killed as a result of its it ingested this, and then it blocked its gut. There we go. Isn't that impressive?
Where is that?
India. This is Fire Island. This is the Bahamas. Here a guy was very creative with the debris that washed up on his beach. You probably can't see it too well up here, but there's plastic bags up in there. The orange thing is a plastic bag. This is from a tow off the New Jersey coastline. Some plastic bags up here. These are grease balls, softballs. When I was a kid, I always wondered what happened to my baseball when it went down the sewer. When I got older, I found out it went out into the Atlantic Ocean. And then here you can see plastic bottles accumulating oil. This particular marine debris incident was reported by one of my graduate students. And he called in, he said, "What should I do?" I said, "Well, you're supposed to call the Coast Guard. Call the Coast Guard, but make sure you take a sample." So he took this sample and brought it back for me. And this particular debris slick was probably about 5 nautical miles long. It was about 3 or 4 miles off the Jersey shoreline, and it washed ashore over there on the Jersey beaches within 2 or 3 days. And one of the things that was found in this debris wash up was a plastic bag with body parts in it. I know you can't see this, but I'll try to point it out. These are pie diagrams of plastics found in and around different environments in our area. This is common material found in New York Harbor. And here you can see they separated out styrofoam, so the styrofoam cups are different than the rest of the plastics. But about 86% of the debris that is, if you just go out and sample it in New York Harbor, is plastic. Common materials found on New York and New Jersey beaches, 47% is plastic, about 20% styrofoam. Common materials found in storm sewers. This is pure storm water, not combined storm sewers. Styrofoam about 45%, plastic only about 10%. So here you're getting, in New York City, an idea of the number of people that throw styrofoam cups in the streets, and they wash down the storm sewers. And then this is combined storm sewers. Combined storm sewers are sewers that hold both domestic waste and stormwater. And when that volume exceeds the capacity of the sewage treatment plant, the combined sewer overflow, as we call it, is discharged without treatment at all. So that's when you get feces and other really gross things in the environment. All right, so what can we do? Adrienne's mentioned a number of these things. Well, there's been an attempt to physically collect a lot of this debris that gets into the environment. I'll show you some of the systems. We can try to do education, as we're doing here tonight. We can create incentives. In other words, if you bring a paper bag back to a grocery store, you get a nickel off or something like that. Or we can create legislation. And all of these things have issues of their own. They're not perfect solutions. So if we want to create legislation, we can talk about in terms of recycling, we can tax, or we can ban. All right, just to give you an idea of some of the things that are going on with trying to collect it. This is in Jamaica Bay, and here this is a combined sewer overflow. They're collecting the stuff in these bags and then come around and collect it. It's a very awkward, inefficient mechanism. By the way, this is what combined sewer overflow looks like back here. Notice how oily, greasy, filthy it is. A combined storm sewer is a huge thing. It's not just a little pipe. In this particular case, the combined storm sewer was 4 barrels. They're 8 feet wide, 4 feet tall. So this sewer was essentially 32 feet wide, 4 feet tall. Other things that the city is doing, they're required to put nets on the barges that haul garbage around the harbor these days. Also, they're required to put a barrier across the entrance to where the barges get loaded. And that's because in New York City, we have both commercial and public pickup of garbage. And it's very interesting. If you're a commercial guy, you get paid by the amount of material you pick up. So you come to a transfer station like this, and you want to get back on the road. And in some cases, they dump their load whether there's a barge or not. If you're a city worker, you pull up, break out a 6-pack of beer, and wait for the barge to come. All right, another thing the city has done, they've built a small fleet of skimmers that go around the harbor and try to clean it up if a slick is reported. And here you can see this is a trial run. These little orange cans were deliberately dumped. They get onto a conveyor belt here, go back to here, and then they're taken back to port and eventually landfilled. Education. This is a poster we prepared a number of years ago for the subway system, reminding people that they shouldn't be disposing of stuff in the environment. We prepared a video for probably 1st to 4th graders talking about how garbage gets into the environment and the dangers of it and what they can do. And then we can move on to legislation. This is Suffolk County's law. Suffolk County was the first countywide law in New York requiring recycling of plastic bags. And plastic carry-out bags, this is for stores that give out low-density polyethylene, linear low-density polyethylene, etc. The stuff that we typically think of as making plastic bags. And that law requires that plastic carry-out bags be, that there's a bin to collect it, and that all recycling be done legitimately. And it also requires that if the store is greater than 20,000 square feet, that you have to sell reusable bags as well. And here you can see in the background a bunch of plastic bags at a recycling facility. Adrienne is absolutely correct. Do not put plastic bags in your recycling bin, because when it goes out to the facilities for sorting, they actually have to have people there physically picking plastic bags out because it screws up the machinery. All right, so here's some recent issues. A lot of talk about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch out in the Pacific Ocean. Actually, it's several garbage patches. The tsunami in 2011 created tons and tons of debris that crossed the Atlantic Ocean and actually did bring invasive species to Northern California and Oregon. And in the case of Oregon, they've decided to burn most of the debris that washes ashore just simply because of the invasive species issues. We've had a wealth of debris as a consequence of Superstorm Sandy. I'll show you a picture of that. Some of the more recent things that are now of concern are the microbeads that are in products like face washes and toothpaste. Industry is starting to ban those things. But moving on to the next thing that probably is a concern is that there is a newly developed washing machine that is supposed to save water. And instead of using water like we typically think of in today's washing machine, it has thousands and thousands of little plastic beads. And these little plastic beads are you know, going back to the day and age when you used to go down to the creek and beat your clothes on the rocks. This is the idea of the plastic beads. You're going to sort of beat the dirt out. The problem is that there's no guarantee that these things are going to stay in the washing machine. They're designed supposedly to do that, but there's no guarantee. So this is something that we need to look out for in the coming years. No matter what we do with plastic bags, there's going to be a new generation of plastic stuff just coming at us continuously. All right, so here's a picture of the great garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean. These are created because of the circulatory system that's in the North Pacific Ocean. Essentially goes like that, and then there's these subcirculation systems. So there's a patch both on the east side and the west side. Actually, there is a garbage patch similar to this in every major ocean of the world. Adrienne mentioned the one in the Atlantic. It's been there far longer than this has been noticed in the Pacific. And one of the interesting things about the Atlantic is that much of it is hidden in what we call the Sargasso Sea. And in the Atlantic, they have this huge patches of sargassum weed. And a lot of the garbage and so forth that we talk about actually gets in there, and you really don't see it until you start picking the weeds out and sorting through them. So you don't hear about that nearly as much as you hear today about the Pacific garbage patch. Superstorm Sandy. Over 500,000 tons of debris were collected as a consequence of Superstorm Sandy. We don't know how much got into the marine environment. Actually, I was expecting that we would get major wash-ups of marine debris in 2013. We did not. And one of the reasons was, if you go look at the meteorology and the oceanographic conditions that occurred during the summer of 2013, they weren't conducive to a marine debris wash-up on the south shore of Long Island. So there very likely is still lots of material still floating around on our continental shelf as a consequence of Superstorm Sandy. The only thing I can really say that would add anything to what Adrienne has said is that we are still a very wasteful society, that we really need to think about what we use and what we throw away. And as you can see from those statistics, even with all the education and so forth that's going on, we still continue to throw more and more stuff away. So we truly are a throwaway society. And so plastic bags is just one symbol of that. I think I testified in favor of Southampton's plastic bag ban. I think it's a good thing to do, but recognize that the alternatives are not great. Paper bags chemically probably are far worse. If you had to make a case of a paper bag versus a plastic bag, the thing that I think really sets the plastic bag apart is what it does in the environment, and that is entanglement and all these other things that I've shown you some pictures of. So I thoroughly encourage you to move forward with your ban, and I wish you the greatest success in achieving that goal, because you can set an example for the rest of us. The county has tried to introduce legislation to ban plastic bags. It has failed in the legislature on 2 or 3 occasions. Vivian Fisher introduced it several times. One of the times she introduced it was about 2009, and there was a great outcry from the public about we couldn't afford a nickel for a plastic bag because of the downturn in the economy. That's changed, of course, considerably, so maybe we can't afford it now, and you know, banning it, taxing it probably is a great thing to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swanson, for, again, another very informative presentation. Next, dealing on some of the same subjects, we have Robert D. Giovani, the Executive Director of the Riverhead Foundation. Robert.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here. Yes, I work with the Riverhead Foundation for Marine Research and Preservation. We couldn't think of a longer name, so we picked this one. We deal with marine mammals and sea turtles for all of New York State. And why we point this out is we deal with all of New York State. We have the Hudson River, we have Staten Island, we have Long Island Sound. We're located out in Riverhead at the site of the Long Island Aquarium and Exhibition Center. So this is our facility right here. They provide us space, and that's where we actually operate our hospital, where we bring animals that wash up alive to try and rehabilitate them and get them back out in the wild. That is our intent. In doing so, this is our mission to try and rescue animals, rehabilitate them, release them back out into the wild. There's a little plug for the sea wolf there, right there. This is, working with Larry, this is one of the dolphins that we were able to rescue and rehabilitate and release off the back of a ship and track him for about 30 days. It gives us a lot of information about these animals in our backyard. It's great to hear all the talks before us talk about the fact that marine mammals and sea turtles are here. 20 years ago when I started doing this work, I would sit at meetings and my only question or statement would be marine mammals and sea turtles. I said, what about them? I said, just put them in the room. We got to talk about them sometime because they are here. And most of the time, people just didn't even realize how much we have in our waters. So we do all this through trying to educate the public that this is going on in our backyard. A map here, this is from 2012, just showing you a little bit about where animals come up. Basically, if I were to take all of our data, our 5,000 data points that we had, you can outline Long Island and you can see all the areas. Animals come up all around Long Island. It's one of those things where when we look for them, we're tending to find them. It's good and bad. It's really important for us to realize that with New York being such a populated area, we're able to find these animals a lot more readily than maybe our counterparts in Maine or up the coast, where they're only going to have like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 7 people per mile of coastline. We'll have like 7,500. So we have a good chance of finding animals if they're in need. This is just showing you a seal that's on the beach. This is a leatherback sea turtle. This is a humpback whale that was in need. So we kind of go across the whole gamut. This is just a general graph of trying to show you some data of animals that we've encountered. The red are seals, and you can see that we've had a large number of seals here back in the 90s. We've had 124 animals come up at one time. Those numbers are kind of changing, and we don't have time in this talk to talk about why those things are occurring. But there are changes in our environment that we should see. We're seeing a lot more cetaceans or dolphins and whales and porpoise come up. We're seeing sea turtles come up at larger numbers. Here we can look at 2014 where we had a large number of sea turtles come up. Not so many seals, only 79, and some cetaceans. In 2013 we had a large number of bottlenose dolphins come up. We had about 90 bottlenose dolphins wash up all around our coastline due to a virus that was found. That event has actually still going on and has extended all the way down to southwest Florida. And so it's basically a coast-wide issue. And it is attributed to a virus that we see in the environment. But as Larry mentioned, when we talk about disease, and we also should talk about stressors, what are the factors that contribute to these animals being sick? So what do we really find in our waters? We find 5 species of seals. We have harbor seals, hooded seals, which is an Arctic seal. Harp seal is an Arctic seal. And ring seals. And I jumped over this gray seal in the middle because I wanted to talk a little bit about Arctic species just for a second to let you know. These are animals that are coming down from the Arctic. They come down here. We don't usually see them in winters where it's not as cold as we had this year. So all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks, we're starting to see more of these animals come up. I point this out because you're looking at animals that are moving with the currents, moving with food, and so they're moving around. So we have to realize that when I first started studying marine science and looking at areas where you can study animals, I thought about it from just being lazy and say, hey, what's the least amount of work I can do? And say, well, looking at insects, there's a ton of them, so let me look at marine mammals, there'll be less. Well, then I started doing this in New York, and we have northern species that come down and southern species that come up. So for us, we deal with 24 different species of dolphins, whales, or porpoise. We deal with 5 species of sea turtle, 5 species of seals, 4 species of the 7 species found worldwide of sea turtles, and as I said, 24 different species of whales, dolphins, or porpoise. So we actually deal with a lot. So there's a kind of a problem there is that when we have southern species coming up, we have to be able to gear for that and be ready for that. So we don't really have a downtime of the year. And the other interesting part, which is this, everybody remembers what happened in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010. And oddly enough, I was trying to figure out what these current zones and convergence zones and use a map for that, and none of them really look cool. So I wanted to tell this story. When we went out, our team was asked to go down and help out in the Gulf and help with the oil spill, and this is us out on the boat and basically capturing turtles that are in these convergence zones where we're having all this the sargassum and productivity at one point. We're also having oil show up there, and that's how we would go. We would go look for these animals, and we would be able to pick up animals. And you might not notice it, but we have flags on here because this is still a fishing boat that we were using, and so they always want to talk about how many turtles we rescued in a day. They had to show everybody, and you can see we were able to go out and capture a number of animals. Why is this important? Because just like oil and sargassum can show up in those areas, so does the plastic. So when we come to this, we can see that these are animals. These are some hatchling sea turtles. This is all hanging out with sargassum. These are turtles that are just going to hang out, and during that stage of life, they're going to hang out and feed on whatever's there. And they haven't gotten the memo on the fact that we have plastic there, so watch out for what they're eating, so they're ingesting it. And the thing that's really problematic from my perspective is we don't really know all the impacts of ingesting plastic. We know that when they show up on our beaches and these animals are dead, obviously they're dead, that's bad. But an animal that has plastic or small particles in there, what does that do to the animal? How does that compromise them? Does it compromise the mother? Does it compromise egg production? Also, does it actually present a problem where it can include the area getting into the gut? So then what you have is an animal just hanging out, eating, and starving to death. So it seems like it's pretty much the worst way that you can go. I mean, I'm not going to go starving to death, that's for sure. So from this perspective, what I was looking at, and this is kind of one of our graphs from NOAA Fisheries Debris, and I thought it was interesting looking at the amount of money that they calculated. We can calculate and put numbers to anything, how much money is spent on people looking for cleaner beaches. And I think it's really interesting. We can look at some of the numbers. Adrienne had numbers of, I think, 267, 115 different species of marine animals. So the point is, we're talking a lot of animals that are being impacted on a regular basis. And I want to use this slide here, which is really good. I mean, Larry, if we actually coordinated this, I'm picking up on all this stuff and putting it in here really well. I wanted to use this slide to look at one of the things we need to think about in New York from a perspective of us seeing stranding numbers is it's usually the lowest possible number we can get. Because of some of the things that Larry pointed out, is that we tend to have a lot of our debris pushed offshore. The same thing will happen with our animals. We have animals that die offshore. They might not make it to our beaches. So this is an underrepresentation of what could actually be going on out there. So that's why I always feel that even though we could say it might be a little less than what you see around the country, it's still a high-low number, and that's problematic. So just giving you an idea, I said we would work all over. This is a Rizzo's dolphin that was stranded up the Hudson River. And this is really close to shore. It was stranded up the Hudson River. We sent our team out, and this animal did die, and we found plastic bags in the stomach. So this is an animal that was up the Hudson River, had bags in his stomach, basically starved to death. That's obviously a problem. And when we look at it, the interesting part about this is we've started to see more Rizzo's dolphins. We were fortunate to be one of the first facilities in the world to rehabilitate a Rizzo's dolphin anywhere else in the world back in 2005. Since then, we have done 2 of those animals and got really interesting data on where they go. And so I don't always want to start on a negative. Here's Roxanne. It's a Rizzo swimming in our tank. We released this animal. She went out all the way out offshore, and she kind of came all the way down the coast. She feeds predominantly on squid. She's feeding on whatever's in the water column. But from this story here, you're feeding on squid, you have an animal that's ingesting debris. If there's problems in the food source, that's going to be an issue. Key thing is, if the bag is not there, they really can't eat it. It's really problematic for them to do that. Here's another story about when we look at necropsies, or a necropsy is what we do on an animal. When we have an animal wash up dead, we want to try and find out what the cause of death would be. And we kind of break it into 2 big categories. Is it natural, something like a disease or something like that? Or is it anthropogenic? So is it something that's caused by us? This is an indication here of an animal. This is a leatherback that was hit by a boat. So that's bad. This is probably what killed it. But on further examination, it's an animal that was ingesting debris or plastic bags. So now the question comes in, and we can't get the answer to this because there's just so many unknowns. But the question is, what was a problem? Did it ingest the bag? Did that become a problem? Did that change the animal's behavior? There are a lot of factors for us to think about. The key here is that if they weren't able to ingest the debris, maybe we wouldn't have to deal with that issue. This is a case that was actually from Virginia Aquarium where the animal actually had this CE case, and it actually killed this animal.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. And we talked about entanglement in gear. Here's an animal that we were fortunate enough to actually get called. We were able to go out, disentangle the animal, and release it back out into the wild after somewhat lengthy rehab. And what I did say, I wasn't trying to show any gory pictures, so these are kind of the best pictures that we can come up with, so we have a lot of gory ones. I think the thing that's interesting about this is when I first started working in this field, we used to work on a summer camp program. And the way it worked is we had kids that were coming from west on the island in the city, and we would meet them as far as the bus could get them back in a day. And then we would go out, and it was kind of a real interesting camp because in the marine environment you can lecture about anything. It's really cool. It's a great classroom. You just go and find something you can lecture on. So it was cool. So we had a very loose structure on how we would do this, but the one thing we always did was have the kids pick up garbage. And the way we would do that is say, okay, you came out, you had this, we had all these questions, you have to pick up one piece of garbage and throw it out. So we thought that was really great, really profound. And this little girl came up to me right before, and she comes up and tugs on my arm and says, Mr. Rob, can we pick up more than one piece of garbage? This beach is dirty. And I was like, wow, I just got schooled by a 6-year-old. So in that sense, that's always been the bigger issue that we've had, is that any time I go to a beach, we can find marine debris. And any time we find marine debris on the beach that we don't remove, we've given it another chance to kill an animal. And we really shouldn't be doing that. And to kind of look at some positive notes, sometimes it's still this is a true beak whale. Sometimes they die for normal reasons. Sometimes it does happen. It happens in the wild. It sounds bad, but wouldn't it be better to know that this is the only cause that we have out there? We really need to be thinking about how do we impact our environment? How do we make some of these changes? These were a true beaked whale and a calf that came up. So the bottom line with any of this, when we look at these animals that are coming up, we're looking to you for help to help do this. Plastic bags in the marine environment, definitely problematic. Ingestion of debris, problem for animals. We have animals that have ingested hooks, fishing gear, any number of marine debris you can find. Cleaning up the beaches with the animal, I think it's great. We're trying to reduce these bags getting into the environment, but also going out there and making sure we're removing these bags and removing this debris is a key factor. And when I had, we had a class that we also did where we would take 2 school groups and we would teach about the marine environment. And we would show them slides like this. We would take them out into the environment, have them work together. Once again, do another beach cleanup. And we bring them together and have them do lectures like ours. And it was very demoralizing for us because they use PowerPoint much better than we do. So these kids were amazing. And we had these 2 groups, and this one kid stood up and said, we've been listening to these presentations, and he said, there's a lot of debris out there. He said, but there's a lot of us out there. If we work together, we can make a difference. And this is from 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And so here's the key. If we're working together, we can definitely make a difference and help these animals in the future. Thank you.
Okay, and again, we're going to hold off on the questions until we finish with all the presentations. I think everybody, or hopefully most of you are aware, there was a survey going on before this forum asking about plastic bag usage. That was done by St. Joseph's College and their sociology department, in particular Kirk Lawrence. So they're going to talk about the results of that survey. So Kirk, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Unfortunately, we don't have any cool pictures of animals, but we do have some data that was collected from a survey that we conducted over the last few weeks. And some of you may have participated in that. We actually came kind of late to the Protecting the Environment Committee. I had contacted Joseph Dean, and I knew him because I had taken a couple classes to the wastewater treatment plant, which if you have some time, contact Joe on a nice Saturday afternoon, go to the wastewater treatment plant and check it out. It's really sort of a fascinating place. But we wanted to help the committee however we could. We weren't necessarily coming in to advocate. Ultimately, we ended up deciding with the committee's agreement that we would conduct a survey. So we designed the survey as carefully as possible to be as objective as possible. We weren't trying to steer people in any particular direction. We just wanted to get a sense, as they wanted to get a sense of what public opinion was on this issue. So I'll show you some of the results from that, along with Ann Cronin and David Moyson, who are part of the Students for Sustainability at St. Joseph's College group as well, and they'll talk about some of the results. We designed the survey itself. Okay. The survey itself was conducted online and on paper. So there's a web-based version and a paper-based version. They're essentially the same survey. One could be done, it was using SurveyMonkey, a simple online web-based survey tool. The other was conducted on paper, and that's where the students got involved. So the students were conducting the paper-based survey, for the most part, at the corner of Ocean and Main or Montauk. And they did that over the period from March 9th to March 13th. We had planned to start doing the paper-based surveys right when the web-based surveys began, to have them coincide with each other, but that was right when the snowstorms are hitting and trying to get students to go out and stand on the street when it's below zero and conduct surveys when there probably aren't any people walking around is not going to work. So we did it mostly during the last week or so. And then we started compiling the information, and we'll show you what we have. The survey itself was based on a survey that was done by Champaign, Illinois, that was done in Champaign, Illinois. We took that survey and modified it somewhat with some input from members of the village, and that's what we came up with. So I'll show you what we have, and as they will too. The main finding that we have is that there's broad support for what we asked was significantly reducing, or putting a policy in place to significantly reduce single-use plastic bags. That is clear, and that's true regardless of whether you're a village resident, non-resident, male, female, or what age group you're in. So these are the basic demographic questions we asked. We had a nice distribution of the different groups. We do have more females than males, more non-residents than residents, but the groups themselves had broad support for significantly reducing plastic bag use. It didn't matter what age bracket you were in, whether you're male or female, a village resident or not. So the results tended to be roughly the same by these different groups. This is one of the first questions we asked, and that question was, when a store presents you with a bag type, often you choose the following, and we let people kind of choose which ones they would want to and how often they would do this. It's a little difficult to interpret, I think, what's coming out of this question, but the main thing that I see anyway is that people they did have a preference for reusable bags, and they would like to use reusable bags, they want to use reusable bags, but if they don't have reusable bags with them, and one of the comments that we got many times is they forget them, and you'll see that in one of the later questions, is they'll use another type of bag. So it's not that they wanted to use these other bags, they didn't have them with them or they forgot them for some reason. You'll see convenience comes up a few times with the plastic bag issue regularly. But people are using multiple bags. Again, the preference was for reusable bags, but the plastic bags do appear, and they do appear essentially, I think, when most people are forgetting to bring the reusable bags. So I'll turn that over to Ann, and she can show you what she has.
Okay, so one of the first things that we wanted to establish were the reasons behind using plastic bags, so the single-use plastic bags. Now this is a circle all that applies, so that's why there may be more recorded responses than the number of participants that we had. But when it came down to it, it wasn't that plastic bags were more convenient or that, that they were more cost-effective than reusables. It really came down to the fact that, like Professor Lawrence said, they would either forget them at home or they would just reuse the plastic bags that they already had. So after looking at that, we wanted to see reasons why people would not use plastic bags, so what the reasons were behind that. And the reasons were really interconnected with one another. People preferred using reusable bags, and that probably tied into their environmental concerns. So in speaking of the environment, we wanted to see if where the participants had seen plastic bags, and like we've talked about it before, you know, they're in the trees, they're really all over the place. And so the answer was everywhere. The participants saw them in the roadways, the beaches, trees, the bay, storm drains. So they're found pretty ubiquitously. So Dave is going to come up and he'll finish the rest of the study.
Alright, so this slide shows, asks, do you think the village should implement a policy to significantly reduce plastic bag use? And it was, as you can see, it's an overwhelming yes, that roughly 81% of the participants of the survey said that they would like to reduce plastic bag use, which is a good stepping stone. So the next slide shows which of the following options would be the most effective for significantly reducing plastic bags. And as you can see, there's multiple options, but the ban of plastic bags seems to be the one that was chosen most frequently at roughly 40%, which is a pretty overwhelming number if you consider the other options. And the last one is, what is the most significant barrier to decreasing it? So there were a number of options that people had to choose from. Lack of awareness, the cost, the forgetting their reusable bags, which were discussed before. But as you can see, about 38% of people said convenience was the reason for why they wanted to decrease plastic bag use. But what we saw from the last slide is that there was a ban. The ban of plastic bags was the reason for why they wanted to ban plastic bags. So now you can see that because if you ban plastic bags, it's no longer a convenience for them to use them. So if we ban plastic bags altogether, then they have a reason to, to implement this reusable bag opportunity, so that they have the ability to use these reusable plastic bags and make it part of their everyday routine, which I think is could be a positive influence. So Professor Lawrence is going to.
So that's what we have, more or less. If you do have any other questions, I can give you a copy of the survey results. If you have additional questions, feel free to contact me. I have my email here, my phone number. I was the principal investigator of the survey along with the students that were here, and we thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Kirk, for doing that survey for us. Very informative as well. Okay, so now we're going to get to the question and answer period. The way this is going to work is I'm going to ask people to raise their hand to have a question. I'll acknowledge you. My assistant Don back there will bring the microphone up to you so everybody can hear the question. So the panelists, let's give them a couple of seconds here to come on up. And I see our first gentleman with a question there. Please stand. Don? I think we're waiting for Don.
Or you could just shout.
Or you could just shout.
How's the volume?
Volume's perfect.
I have spoken to the panel a couple. I have spoken to the panel a couple of times prior to this meeting and explained to them what the objections might be, not to the banning of plastic bags, but to the way the village is proposing to go about it. Most of the plastic bags that are brought into the village come from outside the village. So the banning of plastic bags within the village will not stop 80% of the bags that are being thrown out in the village, and maybe even more than that. Unlike the village of Southampton, the village of East Hampton, and in Champaign also, which have cities and villages where the supermarkets and hardware stores are within the village. So banning plastic bags makes it an even playing field for those supermarkets and hardware stores to not be hurt by people going outside.
Jim, I appreciate the comments, but this is really a question and answer period. We just want to know, please get to a question, because we do have a lot of people that would like also to have a question.
Yes. What the grocery stores here in Patchogue would like, and I speak certainly for the biggest one here in Patchogue, and for the next biggest one, is that isn't there a way that you can prevent any plastic bags from coming into the village? Can't you make this a policy rather than a law that puts someone in jail for 15 days, which is the law that you're proposing, if it's like West Hampton, like Southampton, East
Yeah,
Hampton?
well, as I said, we're still working on the language of legislation. We're not really proposing anything yet, certainly not to put anybody in jail if we can avoid it.
Well, that's what all those laws say.
Yeah, we haven't established those yet. We haven't established the laws in
Right.
Patchogue yet. And we spoke about, I get your point about the bags coming in from the outside. Certainly sympathize with the smaller grocery stores in here who may or may not be affected by that. Number one, we, as I said earlier, we know our impact may not be that great. What we're looking to do and hoping to do is that this spreads so that if it goes to the village on either side of us, into the north and the south of Lake Grove, and then eventually the town. We also feel as a village, if we start banning, we take that on, that might be too big a monster for us to handle. You know, we talked with, Adrienne mentioned that $800-900 suits, the lawsuits that would come in, and that certainly would be, you know, you start about fighting wall bounds and ShopRite and those. The town, the county, they can fight those guys. We probably can't. And I would hate to get into something that we know we're defeated right away and mire the village in some long and lengthy lawsuit where I think there's an easier way out. I think as it spreads and as word gets out, and I tend to believe that most of the stores here is, you know, are being supported locally by people in the village. And my own belief is that there'll be very little effect. I think if somebody's been shopping at the same store because they serve a quality product and quality service, which we get from every merchant here in the village, I think because they have to bring their own bag, I don't know that that's going to make them say, well, I'm going somewhere else. I would hope not. It may be a few, but as I say, we have a lot of high-quality stores here who provide a great service, great personal service, and I think that's what keeps us shopping locally, and I really think that's going to continue. There'll be some bumps, there'll be some complaints, some groaning, we all know it. We're all going to go through it, us as well, the merchant, the resident, the consumer. But I think in the long term, if we wait it out a little bit, I don't think that'll be as big an issue as, you know, what you seem to be concerned about. But yes, we have thought about that, you know, and I do sympathize with some of the concerns.
Let
of
me
some of
just
those
make
folks.
one statement on behalf of those grocers that I speak of, and that is to say that they support banning plastic bags very much. They just want it to be an even playing field. They would like it to be, they don't want to be heard, and they feel, even though you don't, that they will be heard if it's just Patchogue Village. Thank you.
All right, next question. There was a lot of information. I'm sure we did answer a lot of questions, but does anybody else have a question or comment about the presentation today? I mean, I think what the gentleman who just spoke, what we need to emphasize is that nothing's been written or passed yet, and there is going to be a public hearing, as Trustee Keyes mentioned, April the 27th, about the specific legislation the village will consider, where a lot of those questions, I'm sure, will continue to be discussed and answered. But right now, I think tonight was about plastic bags and the harm that they do present to our environment. I just want to know if anybody has any specific questions about the presentations today. Yep, Mary.
Hi. I don't have a question. Oh, well, I do have a question. This was a wonderful presentation. I just had no idea of all this information, so I appreciate all the time and effort that the committee has worked on this. So I was wondering, is there a way that we can assist when there's the, you know, hopefully this ban will pass, and at that point, is there any way that we can help with collecting the reusable bags, giving out reusable bags? Is there going to be any kind of initiative to do that so that there is a, for those people who might not be able to afford them, or, you know, people forget them, maybe there's a, you know, share, like we share pennies, you know, you drop a reusable bag or something.
For starters, actually, Our plan is to distribute one reusable bag per household throughout the village as a start. So I think that's going to be a big help and obviously generate a whole lot of conversation about it all, and then people kind of hopefully get on board.
How about clearing up reusable plastic bags and not? We're just talking grocery bags or the bags from the department stores and the bags that you put your veggies in.
No,
It's all
I should have
plastic.
mentioned that. Thank
It's
you.
all
That's a good
plastic. That's a
question.
good question.
No, those that you put your vegetable in are exempt. Any charitable organization, we have a lot of food shelters here, food supplies, they're exempt from the ban. Dry cleaner exempt. The little annoying newspaper that they throw in your driveway,
Why
that's
are
exempt.
they exempt?
Why
Are
is it?
they that much thinner? What's the answer?
No, it's
there?
the same big, well, because you're not looking to make hardships on people who already have hardships. It's a...
Well, no, you know what it is? We gotta start somewhere. Right.
Yeah. it's
Now,
a
we have
start.
some people saying, don't ban it at all, we have some people saying ban everything, but this is, right now, this plastic bag is the most, what's called ubiquitous one, because it's very thin, you can only use it once, some people claim they bring them back to the grocery stores. I have to tell you honestly, I have never seen someone do that, never. And also, somebody might do it, I don't mean to say it like that, but I think that the reason is that this is the one where we're finding in the ocean, this is the one that we're finding all over blowing around. So this is the one big step. There's lots of other steps to take as well on this journey, but this is the one big step that we'd like to take to start with. And there's a lot of precedent for this. So we want to start with something where there's precedent. How
And
about,
the reusables, by the way, are not, there's a certain thickness that they're gonna have
That's
to
right.
be. So that's what makes it a reusable bag. It's not, Emily actually has the single-use bag that she uses about a dozen times. But that doesn't happen that often. But there is gonna be a specific bag, they'll have to meet certain requirements that will be considered reusable.
I'll get you another one in a minute.
Sure.
Somebody else.
Hi, I came down from Port Jeff because we're also looking to tackle this issue.
Oh, excellent.
And you mentioned, and you mentioned, the possible legal ramifications or a lawsuit. And so we're trying to work on my other side of me are my compatriots in this project. We're trying to think through how to make a presentation to our town council. So considering that one of the statistics that I had read about the town of Brookhaven's priorities in terms of reducing waste, that's their top priority because of the landfill costs, and that for every ton that is taken out, that they save about $124, $125.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yes.
So when we consider that we are contributing, to lessening the financial burden on the town, is there a way for the town to help the villages in that? I'm just trying to think out, this might be not appropriate for this discussion. But
No, I can tell you, I'm an activist, I can say anything.
Okay.
Thank you, she does.
And I do, yes. Thank you, Patty. But it's actually kind of interesting that you asked that, because our goal is to get the Patchogue Village to do it, and then have some other villages do it, so then the town will do it.
Right.
And obviously, we all know that Port Haven is the largest town in Suffolk. It's one of the largest towns in America. But we don't anticipate the town helping the villages. We do anticipate at some point, if a couple villages do it, then the town will also join in. And that is the goal. And I think your point about when we reduce solid waste, we are reducing our tax burden. For every ton that we don't put in the landfill, we save $124. Because A, we're not taking it there, but B, we're not taking it to the incinerator and getting it incinerated, and then we're not dumping the ash at the landfill. So there are multiple benefits to recycling all sorts of our waste. They're financial and environmental for the town. So really, it's a huge question, and no one knows better than Larry about solid waste management at Long Island. But I'm telling you, and Larry, I think will agree, that Long Island is heading towards a solid waste management crisis. Brookhaven landfill should be closing in 11 years, according to the projections. And then, what are we going to do with the ash? What are we going to do? We're going to burn it and then what? Ship it, pay to ship it, and truck it off Long Island? Many towns do that. So we have some big choices to make. Big big recycling choices. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to get on my
And
brain.
just so you know, I mentioned earlier that it was back in October when I just casually mentioned to my fellow board members that maybe something we should consider, and Newsday printed that. 3 days later, the first people I heard from were attorneys to the Food Industry Alliance threatening a lawsuit. So expect it. You're gonna get the letters.
Yeah. My name is Brady Wilkins. I'm baykeeper for the Great South Bay and Peconic Bay for Peconic Baykeeper Organization. I'm also a longtime Patchogue Village resident. Grew up on the South Shore here, and I applaud your effort to be a leader on the Great South Bay, one of the first villages to lead the cause here. So I just wanted to make that comment. I'm glad you're starting the conversation and initiating it. Maybe also, once we get through this, the plastic bag issue, we can look closely at the stormwater runoff as well, because that is our next, source of pollution as well. So I just wanted to bring that up. I applaud you, and thank you for holding this. Very important. I just saw since December, I've reached out to 1,800 kids in school districts in Suffolk County. And I got to tell you, less than 10% know where their water goes, where the water comes from, and I doubt they know where the plastic's going. So again, I just wanted to applaud you and take the moment.
Thank you.
Yes, in the back.
As part of your information campaign, are you going to be doing, as part of your information campaign, are you going to be doing advertisement about, for instance, village residents thanking people for bringing their bags to the store, thanking other people that they see walking through, coming into a restaurant with a bag? Will the store want to be saying, thank you for bringing your own bag?
That's the job that we gave to Dave, Janet. Did he tell you?
No, but I was just wondering about that, because we go through all of these things with a dread of what people are going to say. I'm a former school teacher. We were teaching this back in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. I mean, people know that this is wrong, but it's easier. I can carry 5 plastic bags in instead of 1.
It's funny because one of the things that the Grocery Village, we keep not mentioning it, but we all know it's Bravo.
Mhm.
And we met with them, and he was so reasonable and so wonderful to meet with, frankly, and he said, I would want just 2 things. One is if you could do some education so that we don't have to leave it up to the cashiers. Totally agree with that. And he wants a sign in the store before it goes into effect if this passes that says village policy, so that people will be preparing for it, so they'll know the next time they come by such and such a date, they'll need to start bringing their own bags. So very reasonable and actually good request for all the stores, so we can make this transition as reasonable but also as successful, because we want it to be successful. We don't want people to be frustrated, but we do want them to participate. We like to say at Citizens Committee for the Environment that this is the one global issue. This is a big environmental issue, and yet, and we like to say, the answer literally is in your hands. How many other issues that we deal with on this kind of a scale really are about how we make the choice? This is it.
Yes.
And so that's the part of the education we want to do and the impact we'd like to make with all of the businesses. But we need them to be partners, and they are. They've been great so far.
Yeah, I was just thinking in the event, maybe just a thank you to village residents. Say thank you to people,
I think the village might be able to do that.
I just had a quick comment before, because I'm getting old and I will forget it. A couple of things. One of the things that started this and got all of us, well, Adrienne's mentioned it already, more that way, I think, was a movie called Bag It, which if you haven't seen it, it is an eye-opener. Is it available?
YouTube. You can purchase it through,
The library has it. YouTube. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend, because if you have any doubt as to what is going on with this plastic use. The other thing I wanted to just mention is education, as Janet mentioned. Think about going to the big box stores, Costco.
Yeah.
Never got a bag there. People get used to it. Sam's Club, you get used to it. So it's just a training and education.
Yes.
And we're going to phase this in. It's not happening, if we pass legislation on April 27th, it'll be months before we can, and we'll get the public used to it, and education pieces in the paper, flyer, lots of ways to let the public know that this is what we're doing. And I think Jen is correct. Thanking our residents for participating, I think, is a big plus. So, good Jen. Good. Thanks.
Another question.
Sure.
somebody said, all the plastic bags shouldn't be put into the recyclables. And you should take your plastic bags, like, stay to the cleaners where they're collected. Then what happens to them? You know, like, we get so many plastic bags.
Plastic bags are perfectly recyclable, but the technology that they're using typically here on Long Island for recyclables does not meet the needs of plastic bags. So it has to be taken to a special recycler to deal with it.
Okay, so if I take a bunch of bags, say, to the dry cleaners or at the grocery store, they
Take
in
them to the
turn
grocery store.
get them someplace else,
They
where they can
have
be properly
to,
recycled.
according to the legislation, they have to be recycled in environmentally acceptable ways and, you know, not just thrown alongside the road as the recycling truck goes.
We just don't know where they're going, right? Right, they're being done.
Right, but
It's being done.
Yeah, we haven't followed the trucks, but that's beyond my pay
Well, why
grade.
not?
Oh, Patty's like, yes, you have. But legally, they are supposed to bring them to the acceptable recycling, process.
Okay. Just don't put them in with your regular recycle.
Correct.
Any other, one more question? If anybody has one more question?
I'll let you do it.
I'm out.
Sorry.
She's playing polls.
Yeah, I have, yeah. I just wanted, I had a conversation earlier with Joe that, acknowledging the diversity within our community, I would hope that a lot of this information is also translated, and that the education is provided and translated, but also I told him to put an ad in El Pueblo, which is the newspaper from Jalisco, Ecuador.
Excellent point, thank you. Excellent point.
Marion, you're on the
We'll do one more question.
I have just one quick question. I was wondering, it's not about plastic bags per se, but I was wondering, the Village of Patchogue Parks and Recs Department, I know normally does a cleanup day in the spring, and I was wondering if that date has been determined yet. I know they actually do it several times a year, but.
It's usually around Earth Day. We don't have the exact day. It's usually a Saturday or a Sunday, just before, just after, and we'll, please, we'll look out for that. We'll make sure we publicize that. I'll certainly make sure it's put on the chamber website.
Perhaps when the village does their cleanup, there could be some way to quantify plastic bags that was before people were any policy implementation.
Excellent suggestion. Excellent suggestion. All right, well, I want to again thank everybody for coming out tonight. You're here most likely because, you believe in this and you want to see change. So we are kind of preaching to the choir to a certain extent, but the great thing about a good choir is they sing loudly. So what we need you to go out there today is go out there, sing to your friends and neighbors, let everybody know what the Village of Patchogue is talking about doing, and get them to come down April the 27th to Village Hall for the public hearing on this issue. Again, thank you very much.